Good afternoon. It is so exciting to be here with the people who turned Northern Virginia blue in 2017. Great job, everybody. My name is Dan Helmer. I'm running for Congress here in Virginia Tech because I've seen firsthand the consequences of cowardice in our politics. When too few politicians choose the harder right over the easier wrong. And I know the country I want for my sons, Harris and Aaron, standing there in the back, that my wife Karen, a public school teacher, wants for her students. It's the kind of country that welcomed my family when they were refugees, Holocaust survivors, and gave us a shot at the American dream. That's worth fighting for. I've known it all my life. That's what drove me to go to West Point, to serve combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, to serve in Korea, and to this day, to remain in the U.S. Army Reserves. When I think about it, my life has been about three things: my family, service to our country, and bringing people together to solve difficult problems. What do I mean by that? It's the service for which I earned a Bronze Star in Afghanistan, at a time when we were under-resourced and understaffed, and American and Afghan troops weren't working together well in the field. Leading a team that built a national training center that transformed the way that American and Afghan troops fought together in combat. In the private sector, it meant working with U.S. manufacturers on some of the most difficult problems they faced, so that we can still be a country that makes things. And at a time when the Department of Veterans Affairs was failing our veterans, and some were dying on wait lists, and then working with a team that found $1 billion that we could redirect toward our veterans so they get the care that they've earned. That's the kind of diversity and experience and problem solving and leadership we need to take to Washington if we're going to have folks who actually fight for our progressive values and change the way that business gets done. If we're going to make sure that in our district, every single person has access to quality, affordable health care, or to take on the significant challenges facing our infrastructure so that we spend more time with our families and less time stuck in gridlock, or to challenge the culture of corruption in Washington that puts special interests above our interests. And that's why I refuse and never have taken money from any corporate PAC. And you know what? The reason that Donald Trump is our president today is because he's the wrong answer to the right question. What's the right question? The right question is what's happened in our politics that has become about serving the biggest donor instead of the biggest need. I'm ready to be part of a new generation of proven leaders with diverse experience outside of politics, dedicated to our country but not beholden to the system. We're going to go to Washington and change the way that business gets done, to move us from the politics of cowardice to the politics of possibility. I'm ready to fight for us. I've been doing it all my life, and I hope you'll join me. So thank you very much for your time. My name is Dan Helmer. My website is helmerforcongress.com. And unlike our current congressperson, I think this is about you and your questions and not about me. So I'd like to spend most of my time answering those. Thank you very much.
How would my life be better?
Absolutely, it's a great question. My wife, Karen, and I were stationed here by the Army when our son was in first grade. And we fell in love with this place and wanted to stay here because it is a warm and vibrant and diverse community, a place that's truly on the move, a place where most of us are about public service in some way. And yet today we have a politics that puts the future of our country, and frankly of our public sector jobs, in danger. We have a Congress that can't pass appropriation bills, can't pass budget, and by the way, that shouldn't be. It's a false dichotomy between making Congress work and not deporting children. We shouldn't do either of those things. Congress should work and we shouldn't deport children. We need to change the incentives that drive our Congress right now and then imperil our public sector to improve our lives here in Virginia Tech. And so I would support a law that says that Congress doesn't get to go on recess if there's a continuing resolution. It doesn't get to leave. It doesn't get to go home to their families. And guess what? Doesn't get to raise money, because we got to hit the politicians in their pocketbooks where it hurts to make sure they're serving the people of Virginia Tech. That's how it would be better. Thank you.
Your thoughts on single-payer health care? Your thoughts on single-payer health care?
That's a great question. Most of my life, because most of my adult life, since I've been serving in the military, I've had government-provided health care through the Army. And because I'm still an Army reservist, I still get my health care today through the Army. A couple of weeks ago, my son, Aaron, in the back, he can show off his knee later, fell down, and he cut his leg open, he needed stitches. And because I had government-provided health care through the Army, unlike so many families in Virginia Tech, that was not a life-shattering experience. Not one that left me in bankruptcy. Not one that left me unable to take care of my family. Aaron went to the doctor and got stitches, and he's okay. In the richest country in the history of the world, that kind of service and care ought to be a right. If you get sick in this country, you ought to be able to see a doctor. That doctor ought to be able to provide you with quality care. And in doing so, that ought not to leave you unable to take care of your family. And I'll fight for that in Washington.
What's your position on climate change, and what do you do to combat the current administration's negative activities on that?
Absolutely, that's a great question. First of all, there's no such thing as having a position on climate change, or there shouldn't be. Our science tells us that our seas are rising, and 3 hurricanes in the past year tell us what exactly that can do to our country. I had a great conversation with Mike Morrell, who's the former director of the CIA and deputy director of the CIA. And one of the things we talked about, there were 3 major challenges that we face as a country. 3 real challenges to our national security. One, the first one is a bioterrorism event, or not just terrorism, but biological threats. So whether it's bird flu, or whether it's influenza, or whether it is Ebola, something man-made or not man-made that spreads because of globalization to our country we're not prepared to take on. And right now, by the way, we are underfunding science and healthcare in our country, and that makes it an even bigger threat. The second thing is nuclear weapons. And we have a president that tweets about nuclear war as though it's meaningless. That's really dangerous. And the third thing is climate change. And today, we are subsidizing oil and gas. And too many folks have taken donations from folks like Dominion and undermined our energy independence and security here at home. And I think it is critical to our future as a country and our national security that we address climate change and we invest in the science that it's going to take to make sure that America continues to lead in the 21st century and rejoin the Paris Accord, by the way. Thank you. We have time for one last question. Yes.
What is your position in retraining workers?
Absolutely. What is my position about retraining workers? Education and a sound public education system are the bedrock of our success in our economy. Now, I am personally the product of a public education, and because of my service in the Army, I was able to go to West Point and get a 4-year degree without having to pay for it. And I believe that first and foremost, that in this country, if you're willing to serve it, and not just in uniform, but anyway, you ought to be able to get an education. And so I will support a bill in Congress that for every year of service you do of any sort to our country, you are able to get 2 years of educational benefit. And that's at any point in your life. And so we can actually provide job training through public service. as well as provide retraining by allowing people to go back to school. And I think that's going to make a difference not only in our education, but also in the ability of us to come together as a country and get past some of the divisiveness that confronts us today. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate the 3 things you can do for our campaign. I would welcome your time. Please come out to our office, your treasure, because we need some of that to beat Barbara, and your vote. Thank you very much.